guys, welcome to the Industry Influencer Series here on rockstardreams.com, where we connect with music industry pros ranging from A&R, record labels, promoters, managers, publicists, you name it. Take notes, you might just learn something. Stoked to have my boy Ty Salazar, the Director of Creative Licensing for Position Music, on the line with my man.
How's everyone doing out there in the Rockstar Dreams land?
They got their notepads out, man. We got quite a few artists engaged, and then I know we have some industry too that will be curious about the world of sync licensing.
Cool.
So for those of you out there, Position Music is one of the leading sync licensing firms out of the Los Angeles area. Some of their placements for songs have included movies like Transformers: The Last Night, video games like Titanfall 2, and hit TV shows like Empire. My man Ty is spearheading that movement and oversees TV, film, and advertising. So Ty, just kick things off, man. Would love to first off get your background, in the industry so far, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. So my background is that I have been a fan of music since my earliest memories, and I along the way picked up playing drums and percussion. Played in some garage bands, played some cool shows, but ultimately what drove me is the business side of things. So while I was in a band and kind of figuring out, what's kind of the next move, like, should I continue this? Should I get into the business side of things? My dream was kind of A&R. That's all I thought was I'm either going to be in a band or I'm going to sign bands. Those are the two ways that I can see myself going. And I lucked out and heard about a music business program that Musicians Institute in Hollywood was offering. And it was actually a new program at the time. It may have only been 1 or 2 years old. Band ended up dissolving, and I was like, I'm moving to LA. And I went up there in 2004. Took their program, and time in my life when the first time in my life that I actually wanted to learn. I skated through grade school, high school, doing the bare minimum, and then I finally got to a place where, wow, I'm learning about record label operations, publishing, management, you name it, and like literally got a 360 view of the music landscape as it was then. This was 2005, so when I graduated. And what really spoke to me there was music licensing, publishing. I've always had a deep connection to music in film, TV. It always stood out to me. I always kind of found really cool songs that way, and did a deep dive and really looked into artists because I found their music that way. And where I knew someone has to sign this music and bring this music in and get it to the right people. Although I didn't have that foresight, I just knew someone had to sign the music. Somehow it's getting out there. So through that program, you needed to do an internship and get credits in order to graduate. And I had the option of going to a major label publisher or an indie publisher. And it was a hard decision because, major publisher, they have all these really incredible artists, marquee artists that you've heard of, and, it's very sexy and just cool. And the indie side of things was where I came from. It was my band. We were indie bands. No one knew of us except for a small group of people, or the people lucky enough to come out to a show and see us. Those are the people who knew us. And after going through, the site and listening to some of their bands and the music that they already had, and just to think that, I was really going there to learn. I wanted to have hands-on, figuring out how to, do whatever area I wanted to get into. At this point, it was really A&R for music publishing. So I went the indie route. I got an internship at Riptide Music. Now they've joined up with a few of their companies now, the Riptide Music Group. And through that internship, I was lucky enough to fall into a place that needed a lot of help, and that there was, the ship was moving just fine. They were getting music placed like crazy. They were doing that. But they had a backlog of music coming in that no one was getting, what no one was listening to. There was boxes full of CDs back when they had CDs, and it was my duty to go through this box, find the gold out of there, present it to the team, and hope for the best, pretty much. So I love that. I love putting on headphones and just diving in there and listening to just, weird experimental music to like pop music. I'm like, I think this is good. Or then landing on something where like, I know this is good. I could see, this working in TV shows. And that's kind of the moment that you're waiting for, is like, I know exactly where this is going to go. This is a great band. They deserve all this. And ended up signing bands pretty soon after my internship started, because I was in there. I signed a couple bands. Those bands went on to license, and then internship was over, school was closing, and was like, what's the next move here? They offered me a gig. I said, I'll take that gig and keep doing this, and it was incredible. I spent 7 years there, growing I would say the A&R department, in that we were able to take on a lot more stuff, bring in more music, because I had someone spearheading that. But then that's also where I got my TV and film pitching chops too. The person I was running film there, Emily Weber, who I actually work with now again, TV film, and because I was signing a lot of the new music, and bringing new bands, when she would get a pitch that she didn't quite know what to send for, or she was just looking for options, she'd reach out to me and she'd say, we have this request. Is there anything new maybe that I'm not thinking of, or something new that we signed that's not in the system yet? And I would just start feeding her, suggestions here and there. And then that came on to pretty much a coordinator role. Like, I was assisting her. She was sending me all the briefs and saying, hey, if you don't have anything to suggest, fine. But if you do, let me know what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And I started really falling in love with like seeing a synopsis of a scene. Maybe a music or like a reference, but sometimes they don't send references. They'll just say, hey, there's a party scene. This is what's going on. And those were just so incredibly fun to do, because it was like my time to put on my creative hat and be like, okay, what could I see playing in a scene, and then get to suggest those. And then, good portion of the time they come back and you got the scene and it was a win. You're just like, wow, I remember the whole process of like, what do I picture this, to saying, okay, these are my top 3 ideas I'm going to send, to one of those making it. It was, so after a few more years, she ended up taking another gig at a competitor, and then it was fill her shoes, I don't know if the intention was to keep me in that position or to find somebody, but however it worked out, I never left. I did the whole gig, So it was,
that's like half the battle in the music industry is just weathering the storm.
Yeah,
and, position will open up if you just survive long enough.
Survived it, thrived, and it was really cool. So spent 7 years there. Learned so much, so much of that team. And then from there, by reference, I took another gig at First Com Music, which is a production library. They're part of Universal Publishing's production music division. And I went there for a year, worked with a great team, and ultimately it just wasn't the right fit for me. I think that I just do better in indie land and a small team where everyone's kind of has their hands in the pot, and we're all communicating really well. And I got an offer to meet and just see if I was interested in leaving First Com, and this is about a year in, and it was from Emily Weber, who I worked with at Riptide Music, that really taught me my chops, And at that point, I was like, yes, would love to work with you, would love to work at Position. Position Music was always kind of like one of those catalogs where it's like, man, I would just, one day, their roster is just so killer. I'd love to be there. And just down. Now this is going in 4 years now. My role's evolved a bit to include a few newer things. Specifically in the digital world, but for the most part, Film TV pitching's my main gig. We have great A&R guys now that kind of they bring music to the team, and then from there we all decide on what music we're going to sign. So having them plus me being super hyper focused on film TV, also helping with A&R because we get together, we tell them the things that we need and that sort of stuff. It's a really great place to be, team to be with, and yeah, really stoked.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that backstory with our audience, my man. I know there's some music fans watching now, or some people that are just entering the industry, whether it be as interns or, maybe they're going to the SAE Institute or Full Sail University and they just don't know where to start. So, a lot of these backstories, there's common themes. You started out grinding. Obviously, you got to have a passion and love for music first off. Get internships, get a foot in the door, and you never know where it goes. And I think you bring up a great point there with Emily. Just you never know, where that relationship's going to circle back and that opportunity is going to present itself. And if you do great work, you got a great ear for music, good things will happen for you.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. Yeah. And just going back, I mean, my second gig was also a referral. It was somebody that was like, hey, you should work with this guy. So it goes a long way. I
dig it. And now the next question, man, you kind of touched on it a little bit, walking us through your kind of, what's your typical work week like? I know when you and I were hanging back in the day, the old Key Club, checking out Unwritten Law and Sunset Strip there. You're out scouting a lot of bands at shows. Now you're getting a lot of music incoming from digital streams and shared links, etc. So you can kind of walk us through your day, your curation process as a team, and then from there your kind of next steps and how you evaluate that music, piece that 30-second chorus or whatever it is, and how you see it fitting with a scene in a movie or in a TV show, and then what that next step is on that pitch.
Okay. So typical work week. I mean, there's not really a typical week. There's things that you can on projects that are just evolving and are just moving on to the next. So we work with people that work on several different things that at any given time they're working on, and then they're gone. So the majority of my job is servicing film, TV, and advertising communities. So that's music supervisors, music editors, music producers, reaching out to me and our team for music suggestions, ideas for the projects that they're working on. So like I mentioned before, kind of getting a synopsis of a scene and then looking for suggestions for that. I get emails, IMs, phone calls, all day, people just saying, hey, I'm working on this. This is what we're looking for. What do you have? And then it's up to me and our team to pull the best options, suggestions that we can come together with, get those over there as fast as possible, and really, hope for the best. A lot of those turn into placements, and a lot of them don't, for various reasons. It could be that the music we sent over goes in a group of a lot more music. Maybe they take one or two suggestions from me. They're reaching out to more people to take one or two from them. They end up with a dozen suggestions. They pitch those over to a producer, director, whoever it is. And then they ultimately pick the music that goes in there. So there's definitely a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of other companies. There's majors, there's indies. But I would say that there's also just a ton of productions going on all around the world. TV, film, advertising, video games, movie trailers. There's so much happening that on any given day you could be working on 20 projects a day and get something in most of them. And that's huge. That's a huge win. So for me, it's pitching the music, it's getting it out there, so making sure I get it to the right people. And then we're also heavily, reviewing music. So the A&R team, we have a set day on Fridays where they play us, priority music, things from our artists that we already currently have signed, songs that they're working on, songs that we're thinking about working on, and we will go through with a fine-tooth comb and listen to everything, give suggestions and all that. But throughout the week, people are passing files around like, hey, your friend sent me this. What do we think? Is there any potential here? There's people reaching out on our website, people reaching out to me directly that are just, find my name, email on the website, which is there, so feel free. It's going through those and hoping that you don't miss something that's coming in. So the review process is huge, the pitching process, and then and really, being part of the community. Meeting out, going to shows, like Unreal Law, and meeting up with buds, inviting people out to see our bands. There's drinks hangs, there's mixers, having lunches, with the various people. I mean, just being in the community and being part of it is a major thing. That's a major part of, what I do, what we do. So those are kind of the trifecta of things that we do, that A&R, and then just servicing the community, being with clients.
Very cool. Yeah, no, good points there, my man. For artists out there, Ty mentioned too, primarily a Positions catalog is independent artists, producers and composers that they work with. So if you go to the contact section on positionmusic.com, you can actually share links in your EPKs. Ty and his team will review it. Obviously, if they dig your songs, there might be an opportunity for placements there. There's some pretty nice splits there when it comes to the revenue for artists and what position take. So think about that, guys. I mentioned that in my book coming out called Monetize Your Music. Had to get that plug in there. One of the chapters is all about sync licensing for TV, film, video games, etc. So be on the lookout for that. Definitely, I got Position Music as one of the featured firms in that book. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks here, guys.
Thanks, dude.
All right, so I appreciate those insights. You're working on a lot of exciting projects right now. Can you kind of loop us in on some of the TV shows that you're currently collaborating with and type of music you're looking for?
Sure. Right now, we're this kind of correlation for shows. I was going to say show called Claws on TMT. It's a hilarious show. It is incredibly funny, smart, witty. They're using a lot of hip hop music. One of our guys, Nizzy Nice, local LA rapper, got a couple licenses on there. It's a great show. Just check it out. You'll laugh. But that goes back to hip hop. That's a major need for us right now. We have a handful of key guys, but clean hip hop that not too rough, explicit. Party, fun, kind of, stuff like that. That's a major need for us right now. There's another show that we're working on called Grad Night, which is going to be a new Hulu show. And they're looking for rock music, indie rock, fun, upbeat stuff. In fact, one of our bands is performing on the show. They shoot this Thursday. It takes place in a high school overnight grad party, so it's like all night long. There's like lock-in, there's party going on, so they have like bands and music and stuff playing. And one of our bands is band Jet Trash, also local LA, kind of punk rock, indie rock band, just very like timeless sound, kind of like New Ramones or something like that. And that's also another need, like just fun indie rock stuff that's cool, upbeat, fun. Can I say fun again? Like,
let's keep it going.
Party music. So those are two major needs for us at the moment. So if you got some of that, let me know.
Nice. I dig it. I'll toss some tunes your way. Guys, managers who are watching, agents, publicists, take some notes. You just heard what Ty and Position's looking for. So be sure to check out positionmusic.com, like I mentioned. You kind of parlayed my next question there, man. Just the opportunity now for artists to license their music as an income stream for them, outside of obviously selling their music, touring, playing gigs, etc. And then also the opportunity with new media formats like Hulu, Netflix, YouTube. The landscape is changing. So let's touch on that for a second. How has new media platforms, like the Netflix and the Hulus of the world, helped expand your business? And, maybe some pros and cons in there too, where, TV and film, the box office got hit hard this summer. Movies didn't quite produce, projected revenues as expected. So, what's kind of the losses for music licensing companies like yours, with consumer behavior changing to this new kind of digital world?
Mhm. A big con for us, and it might not be this way much longer. I think things need to keep up. Um, but online media, so mainly online TV shows like the Hulu's, Amazons, and Netflix, they are pricing music or evaluating music for their shows on a lower scale, even though the scale is just as big or is definitely going to be as big as traditional TV. So when they allocate their budgets for the shows that they're production, because they're online, they give smaller budgets for the music portion of their shows. So because of that, we're licensing music on a lower rate, I guess you would say. But there's so much more of it now that there's so much content being produced that it kind of evens up, and we're always pushing to get the highest rate that we possibly can for artists. And for the most part, everyone we work with is just genuine and is upfront. So we know what their budgets are and what they can work with. So we make those things work, and hopefully doing a ton of lower fee placements equal in the end. I feel like they are, and I would say that that's probably the biggest con of them all. Then there's a lot of internet shows that are like on YouTube and YouTube Rev and stuff like that. And for those shows, same thing, even smaller budgets. But there's so much, and some of these shows have really tremendous audiences that shows and maybe get a small free fee, or in some cases gratis license, because they reach such a big audience. And from being on these these shows, it could turn into Spotify streams, iTunes downloads. People come to your shows. So I mean, you gotta look at both sides of those things.
Right.
So
it all adds up.
Yeah. So that's the con, and then the pro, kind of just mentioned it too, is that there's so much. I mean, there was over 500 shows in production last year, and that number has gone up this year. It's going to keep going up every year. I mean, these numbers are record breaking. So every year they're breaking the year before. So there is just so much opportunity out there that it's almost like it's the best time right now, and it's only going to keep getting better. Even though I mentioned there's a con, there's so much of a pro that it really is just like, man, just keep feeding all this content down. They need music. Just get it out there. And there's so much music coming in nowadays. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting time. I feel like the ship's starting to right in the music industry a little bit. Obviously, digital streaming services are taking over as the #1 revenue stream. And if you look at what Universal Music Group did and Sony Music this last quarter, I mean, the numbers they're doing streaming-wise are astronomical. They're inking new deals with Spotify and YouTube. They're correcting that. So artists are starting to get their fair share. The copyright infringements are getting less and less. Legal downloads are starting to fade, and peer-to-peer sharing is becoming less frequent legally. It's not a perfect system yet, but you can tell things are starting to be on the up and up. I think industry-wise, north of 15.7 billion this year, where 10 years ago the industry was sitting at 7 billion. Yeah. So I'd say it's an exciting time if you can get a piece of that pie.
Yeah, sure.
I know the LA Times released a good article a couple of weeks ago. They connected with Song Trader's CEO, just talking about sync licensing and that opportunity. And guys, you're watching these artists. You get a licensing deal ranging from $40 up to $3K on average. And think about that. You get 10 or 12 placements over a few years. That money adds up. So just some things to think about there.
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of answered my next question partially there with touching on that last point with the major labels and publishing companies like Cobalt that are inking new deals. ASCAP inked a new deal with YouTube to make sure that there was fair pay for their artists, and that again to help reduce copyright infringements. Spotify's inked a new deal with all the major labels: Sony Music, Universal Music Group, Warner Music Group is on the table soon. How has that trickle-down effect been toward your world? And you kind of touched on it.
So as far as like YouTube and Spotify go, our artists are, or we are monetizing music being used on YouTube. We have a digital platform where anybody can go on our website, and we have a good portion of our catalog available for YouTube licensing. So you can go on there, and if you're a personal YouTuber, a video gamer, someone that has their own YouTube channel, whatever content you put out there, you can purchase the YouTube license for $19.99 and use one of our songs in your video. You can then monetize your video and earn, off of the ad revenue on the back end. If you aren't doing that and you're using our music, our artists are receiving that performance too. So as far as music being on YouTube, I think it's it's a good thing. Same thing that we were mentioning. It's kind of it's getting to a point where I think things are figured out pretty well, and then on Spotify, we own masters on a lot of our music. We produce a lot of our music. We're the label to some of our artists, and in those cases where we're the master owner, we're also making or generating income off of plays. And there's some of these artists that we have that have gone on really incredible playlists on Spotify, and are actually moving the needle with the royalties that are coming in. So it's pretty great.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So the majority of our artists are independent artists. We do have some major label acts too, and it's pretty incredible to see what we've been able to do as far as performance royalties and and ad revenue and that sort of thing from YouTube, and then income coming from Spotify, because you hear that it's so little, and it is a small percentage, but it is in the same way as doing a bunch of low licenses. It's adding up, and it's kind of exciting to see that this is working.
Right. I mentioned earlier, guys, that Ty's placed music for TV shows like Empire, which Empire soundtrack's probably been one of the best overall TV show soundtracks maybe in the last 25 years. I mean, if you get on Spotify now and look at the numbers that Empire's doing, those artists are getting multi-million views for those songs, and Spotify might only pay out 0.003 cents of every play, but you times that by 10 million streams, those dollars add up. So something to think about. Positions helping to spearhead that movement, getting some emerging artists on soundtracks like that. So something to think about. That's exciting stuff, my man.
Yeah, man, this is a great time, dude. And the people you're meeting, I'm sure you're hearing similar stories where it's like things are looking good. So
yeah,
we'll keep the placements happening.
Yeah, and I think the digital world's starting to even out, like I'd mentioned. And 10 years ago, all the labels were consolidating, and the majors were just scooping up all the indies where they could. And companies like Position emerged and weathered the storm, and it's an exciting time. So for the artists, for the industry out there that are watching this, get involved. Be a part of those mixers. Ty mentioned, sign up to their newsletter, submit music. You never know what's going to happen. So keep that in mind.
For sure.
But Ty, we appreciate you being on the show with us tonight, my man. A lot of great insights in the world of sync licensing for music. Guys, thanks so much for being with us here on the Industry Influencer Series here on rockstarjuniors.com. Stay tuned for what's next.